If you go in for your well baby visits for those first 6 months, you're going to be told vaccines have been proven to be extremely safe. And if you have any more questions, it kind of says on the bottom sheet, if you have any more questions, then just go to our website, the CDC. Well, if you go there, this is what it says. This is the bottom of that BIS sheet, right? Then you go to the website, and what do you see when you're on that website? You see this page. It says, vaccines do not cause autism. We put forward a request, first of all, in a FOIA request. We would simply just like to see the studies that show that vaccines don't cause autism, and then we'd like copies of the studies the CDC relies upon to claim that the cumulative exposure of vaccines it recommends that babies be administered during the first 6 months of life do not cause autism. We won the case. They are not allowed to avoid telling us what studies. In fact, they decided instead, or they had to, give us the list. 20 total studies make up the entire list of what they look to when they say that these childhood vaccines, the 5 and the cumulative effects of them given in the first 6 months of life, 20 studies is why we're confident to say they don't cause autism. This one's an MMR, and then one is an MMR and DTaP. Then you have MMR and thimerosal. You know what study is not in here? It's Frank DeStefano's or Dr. William Thompson's study, the 2004 autism study on MMR. That is the central point of the film Vax, which got me into this whole mess to begin with. They don't even have it in here. Obviously, we've done so much damage with Vax, they said, screw it. Don't even put it in there. I'm pretty sure they know I'm behind this request at ICAN, so they just said, forget it. We're not even going to stand by the Frank DeStefano autism MMR study, which is incredible. I hope you're hearing that, Dr. William Thompson, if you're out there watching. They don't even consider that study worth mentioning anymore. Okay, this is number 2 on the list, adverse effects of vaccines, evidence and causality. It's the only one that even uses the word DTaP in it. The evidence is inadequate to accept or reject a causal relationship between diphtheria toxoid, tetanus toxoid, or acellular pertussis containing vaccines and autism. So they just made our point. We asked for the studies that you have that prove that DTaP doesn't cause autism, and you gave us a study by the Institute of Medicine or a review that looked at all the studies around the world and said, we can't find any studies at all. In this article, they say this, at the very top of that same page. The committee reviewed one study to evaluate the risk of autism, by the way, the only study we could find, after the administration of a DTaP vaccine. This one study, the Geyer and Geyer from 2004, was not considered in the weight of epidemiologic evidence because it provided data from a passive surveillance system and lacked an unvaccinated comparison population. These 20 right here, not one of these 20 studies, not one of them, has an unvaccinated control group. So if we're to read into what the Institute of Medicine says, that in order to have a decent study that makes it to the level of epidemiological evidence and is well-powered, you have to have an unvaccinated control, yet they never, ever use one in any of the studies they provide us. Forget that they don't even address the vaccines we asked about. When we asked what studies show us that DTaP, Hep B, polio, Prevnar 13, and Hib, show us the studies that say that those don't cause autism, they could not provide a single one. Not one. Isn't that shocking? We have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of eyewitness testimony to the destruction of their child and regression into autism right after DTaP vaccines. So that's evidence. What you're going to need is some damn evidence to prove that these eyewitness, the evidence, the outstanding evidence around the world is incorrect. You need to disprove that. You cannot say vaccines do not cause autism. You certainly can't say that there's mountains of evidence. Please volunteer to take this down, because if you do not, the Informed Consent Action Network, the HighWire presentation, and all of those that support and follow us will use every legal means necessary to make you accountable.
Vaccines don't cause autism. The science is clear.
We have thoroughly debunked any association between autism and these vaccines.
It has been looked at exhaustively.
Massive evidence that there's no link between vaccines and autism.
To believe the science, it clearly has exonerated vaccines.
Vaccines are really the one thing we have looked at as causing autism.